Hey, Detroit, we're back with another episode of Detroit Next, which is brought to you by BridgeDetroit and Detroit is Different. This is our effort this year in 2025 to clarify all the issues and questions and candidates who are seeking office here in our city. We're talking about the mayor's race, the city council race, clerk, all of the things that Detroiters will decide in August and November. I'm Stephen Henderson.
And I'm Bryce Huffman, filling in for Malachi Barrett.
Yeah. So this week, we want to talk with a former mayor of the city of Detroit, former city council person and mayor, Ken Cockrel, who served for a long time on the council and was mayor for about a year and a half after Kwame Kilpatrick resigned and before Dave Bing was elected mayor. The reason we want to talk to Ken is, first of all, in the modern history of the city, there's only two people who have served both as the city council president and the mayor. Ken is one. Louis Mariani, which is a name most people wouldn't even remember, well before even I was born, he was the other. That's a unique perspective. Somebody who can talk about both roles and the relationship between them. That's important this year because we have two members of the current city council, Mary Sheffield, who's the president, and Fred Durhall, who's a member.
And of course, we have Sontil Jenkins, former city council president.
That's right. She was the former city council president. So the chances that we might get another council president or council member as mayor exists, and Ken can talk about that. But also, Ken is just somebody who understands the city, been around a long time.
Yes, was first elected in 1997, I believe, to city council. So he understands the city, he understands its problems. But he also understands the mechanisms by which city government runs.
And he's also the son of Kenneth Cockrel Sr., who was a long time, well, not terribly long, but a council member a long time ago. And the stepson of Sheila Cockrel, who was a council member for quite some time. So he comes from, a family that was deeply involved in Detroit politics, shaped things in many ways. One day we'll have to do an episode where we talk about, I think, Kenny Cockrel, who was quite the bombastic and energetic figure, and made his own motions toward running for mayor against Mayor Young before he died. But it'll be great to hear from Ken Cockrel Jr. about his experience, the vast knowledge he has about the city. But before we get to that, we want to talk about everything going on in this election. We want to talk about first what we've been hearing from Detroiters so far. Stephen, I know you're pretty plugged into people who know the city well, know politics pretty well. What have those conversations been like so far, especially since we've seen some mayoral forums, we've seen some city council candidates talk publicly? What have you been hearing from folks? I mean, if I had to sum it up, I would say there's a lot of, I think, anxiety and frustration about the field. Now, I don't want people to take that as, people are worried about qualifications. I think everybody recognizes that we have quite a few candidates who, on paper, are absolutely qualified to run for mayor and could serve as mayor. I think what they're anxious and frustrated about is that we are not yet hearing and seeing the specific things from these candidates that would make you say, okay, this is the person that I want to vote for. Right. Some of that, I think, is the limitation of the forums themselves, right? There's a lot of candidates. You can't get people together and have them sit for 3 hours and talk about these things or answer questions. So it's tight. And the answers tend to be pretty glib in some cases.
Mostly campaign speak.
Right. I mean, I think you hear a lot of prepared statements about things and not people talking about, okay, well, here's how I think about this and here's what I would do. The other thing I think is causing that, though, is that it is early and there are so many candidates no one's really getting the chance or the spotlight, I guess, to talk in specificity about a lot of these things. Now, here on Detroit Next, I think we have been trying as hard as we can to get these candidates to sit down and have real conversations about policy and specifics like that. I still think people are waiting for that moment or that piece of information or that glimpse of somebody that they say is the thing that they want to, that means they want to support them. The other thing I'm hearing a lot about, though, is anxiety about the city itself. I mean, what is this new person going to do? What is this new person going to be able to do given some of the challenges that we face?
Yeah, I was wondering, can you talk a little bit about just where we're at as a city as opposed to where we were pre-Mike Duggan being elected?
Yeah. Boy, that's a lot. I'll try to condense it down. So, before Mike Duggan was elected, we were in bankruptcy. I mean, literally, the city could not maintain, it couldn't service its debts and maintain city services. We were spending 60 cents on the dollar, 60 cents of every dollar on debt. And so there had to be this massive reorganization of that debt to lower it so that we could focus on things like city services and building. Mike Duggan gets elected and he is given kind of the gift of this reorganization, right? He's spending way closer to 30 or 40 cents of every dollar on debt. There's about $100 million or $150 million of newly freed money to dedicate to city services, and he starts to do that. I think the one thing that's I guess not debatable about the Duggan administration is that it has prioritized city services in a way that other administrations were not able to. So, garbage, lights, police and fire, across the board, everything has more than it used to.
Right.
And I think people noticed that.
I remember being a college student when he was elected, coming home for break, and suddenly all the streetlights in certain neighborhoods that they weren't on before were now on.
And look, I mean, Mike Duggan likes to run around and claim credit for all of these things, and he was the mayor when they happened. The lighting thing was something that they worked on before the bankruptcy. Dave Bing got the legislation passed to help us make that work. And through the bankruptcy, they created a lighting department that could actually function. But there's no question over the last decade or more, that's what's changed more than anything else here in Detroit. Today, the city looks and feels a lot different, mostly because of those services. I think that's what most Detroiters experience as the difference. But then you also have this difference that people who are not necessarily Detroiters are experiencing. All the people who want to be here now, which we, of course, saw in extreme fashion during the NFL draft and the opening of Michigan Central. I've never been... I'm going to be 55 years old this year. I have never been in a Detroit that has felt like it has in the last couple of years in terms of just people being over the moon about the city and what it offers.
Yeah, I remember being at the draft talking to people from all over the country and even a few people from Europe who were like shocked at how much there actually was in the city.
There's so much more. I mean, just restaurants and things to do, and it's transformative. The riverfront. I talk all the time about how that is the single most important or significant change in the city. I grew up in a Detroit where you couldn't go to the riverfront for most of it because it was dangerous. It was dirty and industrial. And my kids grew up with the riverfront as like the park that was closest to their house. So those kind of things, have made the city very different to live in. That doesn't mean we don't still have real problems, though. And I think that's what people are anxious about in this mayor's race is who can you elect who can maintain what we're doing, but extend it, make it matter for more people who live here and lift up more of the city. I mean, there are lots of places you can go in the city and still feel like there's not a lot of opportunity,
right.
And people don't have a way to get to that opportunity where it exists. And connecting those dots that's really hard, and it's going to be harder to do without the support of the federal government that we've had for the last 4 years, which is going to be different. It's going to be harder to do if there's a recession and some of the tax receipts that the city has been able to cash in on, plateau or decrease. So it's an important decision, and there's a lot ahead of us that could be problematic if we don't have the right people in place.
Yeah, I think from the millennial, Gen Z voters and people who are active that I've talked to, there is this reluctancy to back a candidate for mayor right now because we still haven't seen one candidate kind of address that reality that we're heading for a new era that is going to have a lot of new challenges and a lot of new opportunities.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen one candidate who has kind of come out and kind of like own that as their platform to run with.
Yeah. Well, and I'd be curious from your standpoint, as a young Detroiter, like the things that come into your mind or that you hear people your age talking about that worry you or maybe even excite you about the city and its future.
Yeah, I'll start with the worry. I like to start with the negative. I think a lot of folks that are, and I want to clarify, not just people that are around my age, but people that really do read about city, government and read about policy. People who understand it at least an intermediate level. We want to see a candidate who can really get into like the nerdy policy specifics of what they want to do. We've heard a lot of candidates, even on this show, talk about what they would like to do if elected, what their ideas are. And now, it's getting to the point where we want some specifics. We want people who can talk about, here's how I'm going to get the money to do this cool idea. Here is how I'm going to manage crisis when I am mayor. We're still waiting for that. Now, the good news is we have some candidates who are qualified, candidates that have very relevant experience to the job of being mayor. And I think that is an opportunity that excites me, to see candidates who have some experience really duke it out in this primary and hopefully push each other to really give their best foot forward.
I also wonder what you're hearing at BridgeDetroit. We are now having in each council district forums, our first forums, where people can come and talk with candidates for mayor or city council or both about their concerns. I wonder what you're hearing at those about what people want to know from these people who want to lead the city.
Yeah, I think in much like people my age, a lot of the people showing up, they are people who read the news, people who are pretty involved, and if not involved in city politics, involved in their local communities. We're hearing a lot of people that want someone who can be honest about the problems facing Detroit, be really open about the fact that we're not going to have that federal money to kind of rely on for a lot of programs that are funded through that money. But I'm also hearing that we want we want candidates who are responsive, not just to the big, oh crap type of problems that we're used to seeing in Detroit, but someone who just feels like someone that you can actually approach and talk to about what's going on in your neighborhood. I think whoever wants to run for council, or whoever is running for council, now that we have our official list, and who are running for mayor, they need to be able to be responsive in a way that maybe wasn't always expected of people on city council.
I remember back in, I guess it's 2013, when Mike Duggan was running for the first time and was running as a write-in because he didn't make the ballot. He started these, I don't know what he calls them, but I call them kind of living room mayoral visits, where he would find somebody who supported him and get them to open up their home to other people who were just kind of curious about who he was and what he wanted to do. And he would sit around with them for a couple of hours, talking specifically with them about what was on their minds. Some of these talks would have 20 or 30 people, some of them more, but they were all pretty small and pretty tight. And he's done that now consistently. He didn't stop once he got elected. And I think, I get asked all the time, why has Mike Duggan become so popular with Detroiters? How come no one can come close to competing with him at the ballot box? And I think one of the reasons is there are a large number of Detroiters who have sat in a room with Mike Duggan and talked about what they were concerned about with the city. It's not most of the city for sure, but it's a big part of it. And I'm waiting for, part of what I'm waiting for, I guess, is who's the candidate who's going to sort of double down on that, take something like that and make it different or bigger. I'm sure most of the candidates are doing something on that order because that's now kind of a standard campaign practice in Detroit.
You have to engage with
You've
people.
Got to engage, and that's great. But what's the next level of that? What's the next iteration of it? How does it look different? If it's a Mary Sheffield or a Todd Perkins or any of the candidates who would be mayor, how would you engage people? Is one of the things I think people are waiting to see.
Yeah, and I think we're also waiting to just get a little bit more information about what a post-Duggan Detroit will look like in a financial sense.
And we won't know that for a little bit. It's not going to be good.
Unfortunately, the candidates won't have a sneak preview on that. But I think a lot of voters are people who are thinking about voting, I should say, because not all of them will.
We need them to, but yes,
we do.
We'll start working on that soon.
we're still looking for just more concrete. This is my plan. This is my vision. This is how I plan to execute that vision. I'm a film nerd, so I know what it's like when you're trying to go from screenplay to storyboard to finished film. I think there's a lot of candidates who are still in that screenplay phase, even though we're getting closer to the primary. And I'm curious to see what Ken thinks about it as someone who, as you pointed out, served in city council for a long time, served as mayor in really chaotic circumstances. I'm
the
curious
most
to
chaotic possible, right? You have a mayor embroiled in scandal who won't leave for months, and then he'd leave suddenly, and it's your turn. He really was asked to perform for the city in a way that few others have been. So it will be great to hear how he thinks of that time and what it means for the candidates now.
All right. And we'll be back on Detroit Next in just a sec.
Welcome back to Detroit Next. I'm really glad that you have joined us. In the modern history of Detroit, there are two people who have gone from being the president of our city council to being mayor. One of them is Louis Mariani, who became mayor after Mayor Albert Cobo died. The other is sitting right here next to me. Kenneth Cockrel became the mayor of the city of Detroit in 2009 after former Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick had to resign. We want to talk to Ken about the experience he has as a Detroiter, as a member of the city council, and then as mayor. It's such an unusual set of experiences. So let's just go right back to that moment. Let's talk about the day that you walked into KMAC and were the mayor of Detroit, whereas the day before or the week before, you had been the president of the city council. What kind of things surprised you about that, and what kind of challenges did you encounter?
Well, first off, the one question that people used to always ask me about was it a big surprise? And obviously it wasn't. Because if you're looking at, I don't know if people necessarily remember a lot of the dynamics that were at play, but I think I was at a point where, for want of a better term, my kitchen table cabinet and a lot of the staff and people around me kind of knew at some point you're probably just going to be a piece of paper away from becoming the next mayor of the city of Detroit. So it was just a question more so of when rather than if. So from that standpoint, I had a little bit of time to prepare, and to get ready because it was coming. It's just you don't know exactly when it was going to come. Having said that, though, the transition, it was challenging because obviously it wasn't a typical transition. Typically, when somebody becomes mayor, or for that matter, any executive, whether it's county executive, whether it's governor, whether it's president of the United States, you typically have a transition period of essentially November, December to get ready. In this case, it was more like your transition period is basically a couple days, maybe a week or so, to go ahead and make that switch. So it required really kind of galvanizing and moving very quickly to get certain things set up and to prepare for it. But ultimately was able to do it under very unusual circumstances.
Yeah. What were some of the immediate differences that you noticed between that legislative branch and leading that legislative branch and then leading the entire city and city government?
Well, it's like the volume of everything gets turned up to 11 and the scope of everything that you have to deal with all of a sudden increases dramatically because you go from, like when you're a council member, for example, I'm not sure what it's like now, but back then, looking at the typical size of the average council member's budget, if you're a rank and file council member, you probably have a budget of anywhere from maybe 4 to 5, or it gives you the ability to maybe hire anywhere from 4 to 5 people. Council president, by virtue of enhanced responsibilities, you have a larger budget and you also have oversight authority over a number of other city council staff divisions at that time. So I basically was responsible probably for maybe about 7 direct staff who worked for me. And then in total, counting 3 other staff divisions, probably about 35 people.
Wow.
So basically went from managing a staff of 35 people to probably about 3,400, in the space of just a couple of days. So that's the biggest difference because now you're responsible for ultimately day-to-day management and operations of entire city government.
2 members of the city council who say they want to be mayor. We also have a former city council person, Santil Jenkins. She was also city council president at a time who want to do it. What would you say to those candidates in particular about what they need to be prepared for, and what from the work that they're doing now kind of translates over into being effective in the mayor's office?
I would say the big thing to prepare for, because even though I had served in city government for over a decade before I became mayor, but when I became mayor, the one thing that even I wasn't quite ready for is the extent to which every day can hit you with something completely unexpected. So that's the thing I think anybody that's going to be mayor needs to be prepared for. You can have a sense of what your day is going to look like just based on your calendar and what you have on it. But the reality is something may come up that's going to force you to completely recalibrate and do something different. I can remember, for example, one Saturday morning where when I was mayor and I got the phone call that there was a fire on the east side, DFD had responded. One of the firefighters that was on the scene was fighting the fire, actually fell through the roof, was seriously injured, and was taken to the hospital. This is a Saturday morning. I'm thinking it's going to be a fairly light day for me. No, you got to get up 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, go to Detroit Receiving Hospital, because when you get those calls, it is very often important for the mayor to be on site, to be there, to respond, to be there to meet with the family, to deal with that, to deal with other firefighters. Similarly, if it's a police officer that maybe gets involved in a police-involved shooting and is injured, you're going to have to, whatever you had on your calendar, that all is going to have to be set aside. You need to go deal with that. Or it could be something like, for example, maybe you find out that the city's bond rating just got downgraded. So now...
That used to happen a lot.
So now you need to be in a position to coordinate with your public relations team and with the city's communications team to respond to that, because you know you're going to be getting questions, not just from local media, but even national media as well.
Yeah.
So I would say the thing that they have to be prepared for and be ready for is to understand that whatever you think your day looks like from day to day, it could change on a dime, and you have to be prepared to respond to it.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you make of the city now, its challenges? Things look very different in Detroit now than they did then, but there's some problems that have crossed over and stayed with us. What do you make of what we're facing in terms of the choices that we have? And if you had to sort of crystal ball what the next mayor will face in terms of those challenges, what does that look like?
I think it's really probably the equity issue.
Yeah.
Because it's still something that comes up. I mean, my perspective on this is interesting because I worked in city government at a time where the view of the city of Detroit was very, very negative.
Yes.
It was the whole last person out of Detroit, turn out the lights. People would always hold up the city of Detroit as the poster child for urban dysfunction.
Yes.
Now the narrative is kind of completely flipped on its head.
Mm-hmm.
And the narrative now is kind of like, oh, Detroit's back.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit's the poster child for how you can take a dysfunctional city and stage a comeback. But the reality is both of those are extreme positions that are not true.
Right.
The real truth is, if you look at those extremes, the one here and the other here, the truth is really more in the middle. And that's that Detroit is doing a lot better, but it still has some substantial issues.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the time, to this day, even though people talk about all the great things that are happening in Detroit, all too often, when you get into the details of what they're seeing and what they're talking about, they tend to kind of be centered in a 7.2 square mile area of the city.
Downtown, Midtown.
Yeah, downtown, Midtown, Corktown.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think, though, we're now seeing a lot of that spilling out more into the neighborhoods. You still have to consider the fact that this is a city of, I think in total square mileage, it's somewhere about 136 square miles, something like that. You have large swaths of the city where a lot of that progress and that development has not even begun to touch it.
Yeah.
So that remains an issue. And there's still also questions about how much of the development that is being done, how much of the contract work that is being done, for example, by firms who are actually building a lot of this stuff. You still have the question of, okay, but how much of that is actually flowing to Detroiters?
Right.
How much of that is actually flowing to Detroit-based and Detroit-headquartered businesses? How many of that work is actually being done by people who look like you and me?
Right.
That's still an issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Now the Mayor Duggan says, go around the city. He says, go to every neighborhood and you can see some measure of this progress taking place. Do you not agree with that, or do you think it's just not enough in some of those places?
I think it's not enough in some areas, and I don't think that's. I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. I think it's not through lack of trying on his part.
Yeah.
Because even after I left city government, I had an opportunity for a while when I was at the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation running the Detroit Future City program to work directly with Mayor Duggan and to work with the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation and the city's planning department. So I've seen some of the people that he brought in. And I think there really has been and continues to be a very sincere commitment to trying to crack the code on how do you take a lot of what we see happening in some of these areas and use it as a way to catalyze more development in some of these hard to reach places. I just think they haven't quite cracked the code on it yet. It's a tough challenge. And it's now going to be a challenge that I think will be one of the top issues that a new mayor will have to face.
But what is it that you're waiting to hear or see in the mayor's race that will make you decide this is the person? This is the person for this time to lead the city forward.
Yeah. It's a great question because I'll be honest in saying I've been looking at the candidates. I've even spoken with a number of mayoral candidates. I personally have not made up my mind who I'm going to vote for as of yet. And a big part of the reason why is because I'm kind of still waiting to
see. I think a lot of people are in that space. I want to see more. I want to hear more.
Yeah. how are you going to put your own stamp on city government?
Yeah.
What are you going to do to, continue the positive momentum, but also refashion or reshape the city of Detroit, or at least Detroit government in your image? I'm not hearing that yet.
Yeah. I think as we get more into the campaign, and they have more opportunities to talk with each other and with citizens, I'm hopeful that comes out. But I think a lot of people are in that space right now where they haven't quite heard that.
Yeah.
What is it that you want to do?
And the reality is, I think it's probably going to come down to getting through the primary.
Yeah.
So that we've got 2 people left standing at that point. And then, then we're going to know. I mean, my personal take, looking at how the field has developed.
Yeah. What about the change in city council? When you were a member, as you say, it was all at large, and then we changed the city charter radically and created this 2-tiered system, really, where there are 2 at-large council members, and then everyone else is elected by district. I wonder what you make of that difference and what difference it's had on the city. Now that this is, I think, the 4th election we'll have under those new, or maybe the 3rd, under that new system. Is it changing things appreciably? Is it changing things in the way that we might have imagined that they would have changed when we made that charter revision?
Yeah, it's funny because I know that you and I were actually talking about this a little bit before the camera started to roll.
Yeah.
I don't know that it has had the desired impact.
Yeah.
Because I think the desired impact at the time when people were pushing for it and they wanted to see it happen was they wanted to know that if they had a neighborhood problem, that their council member,
someone to go to.
Yeah, that it would be that if they live in whatever district, that the council person from that district would be the person that they would be able to go to get that problem addressed. And I don't know that it's really had that impact. Part of it is because, as you were saying, that Mayor Duggan, to his credit, and I think very shrewdly, kind of created this own system where he created what used to be called the neighborhood city halls.
Right.
He recognized that with a district system, the thing to do is to not have a neighborhood city hall, but rather to have basically try to align his own staff according to those council districts and have these district managers. And they, in a way, have kind of stepped up to be the point person for a lot of these service delivery concerns or questions or problems. But in a way, I think that's potentially good because if they're running point on that, which the reality is they really ought to, then I think it frees council up to focus on what its real job is, which is to be the legislative branch for the city of Detroit. Making policy, passing legislation, writing and passing ordinances which are going to address problems in the city of Detroit or improve conditions in the city. Because that is council's real focus. It's to write and pass legislation, and it's to approve the budget. And to approve contracts above a certain dollar amount.
I mean, one of the other goals of that change was to, I guess, bring council members closer to citizens. People felt like, just the contact even between citizens and council members was kind of strange because who represents me there?
Right.
Do you feel like that is better now that we have these district representatives? Are they more representative, for instance, of kind of areas of the city and neighborhoods in a way that Detroiters are seeing a benefit from?
I actually do think it's better, but I think a lot of that is going to depend on the individual councilman.
Well, sure.
I mean, and that's because one of the things I used to always say when the district system was being discussed is, at the end of the day, it's not so much how you elect, it's about who you elect. So, I mean, the reality is if you elect a clown, whether you're electing that clown from an at-large system or electing that clown from a district, there's still going to be a clown. Now, to bring it up to date today, I do know that there are some I think of James Tate, Councilmember James Tate, who I served with. He has been incredibly diligent at being responsive to his district constituency. He does regular, ongoing meetings. Sometimes these are big kind of structured town halls. Other times it's just a question of saying, I'm going to be doing office hours at this coffee shop for 2 hours on this date. Just come by. We'll have coffee. If you got something you want to talk to me about, I'll be there. So I think you've got some council members like him who have used the system in a way I think they've leaned into it, and they've used the system the way it ought to be used, which is to say, I'm your district council member. You can come and talk to me, and you can come and see me.
Detroit Next is really a community-driven effort, meaning we can't do this work without you and your support. We want to make this thing a ongoing conversation, not just about who the candidates are, but all the issues that matter to Detroiters and are going to have an impact this election. So we want to hear from you. We do have a Google Voice number set up. We've gotten a couple voicemails that either were too long or didn't quite fit the bill to be played on air. So remember to keep them short, keep them appropriate. The number is 313-284-6407. Leave a message, leave us questions. Let us know what we can be asking these candidates, the people that want to represent you.
Yeah. And if you like what we are doing, you should go to BridgeDetroit.com or Detroit is Different. These are the two partner organizations that are producing Detroit Next. We want to make sure that we can keep all this content coming to you for free. Your donations to both of those organizations really help that be possible. And look, we're just getting started here. We're not even close to the primary election or to the general. There's a lot of work to do. So check out both of those sites. There's also news and information at both about the candidates and the issues in the election. So be sure to help us out and support us.
Yeah. And of course, head to the Bridge Detroit YouTube channel to check out full episodes, full interviews, and clips from Detroit Next. And if you are someone like me who loves the audio version of podcasts, you can find it at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. And of course, you can subscribe straight through DetroitNext.podbean.com.
And again, we will be here all year covering the races for city council and mayor and police commissioner and clerk. You can check us out at BridgeDetroit.com and Detroit is Different. We'll be back next time with the next episode of Detroit Next.
Detroit Next is a community-led project from Bridge Detroit and Detroit is Different, which means that we can't do this work without you. We need your support. If you have a question or a comment and want to participate in this process throughout the year, give us a call. We have a phone line set up at 313-284-6407. Leave us a message and we'll play it on the podcast. If you like what we're doing, head to BridgeDetroit.com and subscribe to our newsletters. All of that content, again, is free, no paywalls for anybody. We're trying to make this as accessible as possible. Head to our YouTube channel to get full episodes and interviews along with extra content throughout the year. You can also find the audio version of this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and DetroitNext.podbean.com. We're going to be doing this all year long, so stay with us. Follow Bridge Detroit and Detroit is Different on your favorite social media platforms and take this ride with us. Thanks.